Better? Okay, thank you. Okay, again, to repeat, are there any questions from yesterday's presentation in any way, shape, or form before we move on to the marketing aspect of the program? AT.
I just wanted to thank you for including Julie and James's books, because last year you said, read this, and I was one of the ones who...
They never do, yeah.
But just the first paragraph, his thrilling use of language is absolutely hypnotically wonderful to start thinking these thoughts.
Keep in mind, James was a philosopher, not a psychologist. The book is not really about hypnosis. There are passing references to hypnosis, but his insight was really just as an observer that this is what I think is really going on. And what I loved about it was he had made this statement that the decision is actually made at the subconscious level before you're even conscious that you made the decision. And just 2 years ago, that was actually proven with MRI studies. And so to be able to sit there in 1976 and think that out, without having the tools or the ability to demonstrate it in any way, shape, or form, it was just very, very impressive to me. Any other questions? Jason?
Kind of on that theme, there's certain themes like that with the implicit learning and the technical jargon of the mind. I think back to the anecdote around the thing that you were fascinated by, they weren't. Have there been some audiences that you did get into that, let's use the trade term of the psychobabble, into more of the details of the mind, or has it been mostly the straightforward, write it down, listen to it, do self-hypnosis?
Are you again referring to like James's book written in terms of psychology?
Basically, have there been audiences that you got a little bit more technical in terms of...
Oh, absolutely. I don't do the psychobabble with most of my groups. What I will do is I will take James's ideas, which I would, as I understood them, and turn them into everyday concept. For example, one thing I did frequently, and you'll probably see it on some of your presentations or at least on the YouTube clips, was when I was talking about the third technique, that I would sometimes start by saying, you carry an image in your mind. You hear people talking about self-image, very common term. He or she always does well because they've got a good self-image or a positive self-image. He or she is always getting themselves in trouble because they've got a bad or a negative self-image. Have you ever stopped to think about what that really is? Because you really do carry an image of yourself in your subconscious mind. You don't realize it, but there's a little picture floating back there that you refer to thousands of times a day. Do any of you know how to find your own subconscious self-image? And of course, very few people, if any, raise their hand. I said, why? I can show you how to do it in 10 seconds or less. If you want to know what your subconscious self-image is, take a moment, close your eyes, try to remember the last time you took a bath or a shower. Everybody starts laughing. I know that's weird. Try to remember the last time you took a bath or a shower. Now, if you think about it, form a clear picture, but if you think about it, didn't most, if not all of you, just do this? When you remembered taking the shower or the bath, you're not remembering it the way it really happened. Isn't it kind of like you just took your mind outside of yourself and you're now looking at yourself, standing in the shower or sitting in the bathtub? It's not like the way the eyes recorded it. It's not a true mental picture, because when the image was being recorded, it was coming through your eyes, so all you really should be remembering right now are tiles on the wall or fixtures on the bathtub. But that's not the way most people remember it. Most people have unconsciously included a picture of themselves. And I'll say, well, where did you come from? That comes straight out of your subconscious mind. And that little picture sits back there all day long, and that little picture has some tremendous influence in your behavior. In other words, if you cannot see yourself as a six-figure producer, you're not going to be able to act like a six-figure producer. Let me give it to you in a more common example. If you have a picture of an overweight person, if the image you just pulled out of your mind when I ask you to think of yourself as a picture of an overweight person, you're probably going to have a weight problem until you change that picture. Often, people would lose the weight, they gain it. They lose it, they gain it. They can't keep the weight off because even though outwardly they've lost the 10 or 15 or 20 pounds, they always still refer to themselves and think of themselves as still being overweight, so they go right back to conforming to that picture. And the best example of that, of course, would be Oprah Winfrey, who on at least 3 occasions has lost a very large amount of weight, looks terrific, achieved her goal, her weight loss goal, but within a year or two tends to go right back to where she started from. She loses it and she gains it again because she doesn't do anything to change the image. And I say, what fascinates me about Oprah's experience, have any of you noticed that when she gains the weight back, she doesn't add on an extra 10 or 15 pounds. She goes right back to the exact weight that she started out, which in its own weird way is a form of control. It's not that she goes and then puts another 15 pounds on. She goes right back to where she started, telling me that that little image in the back of her mind is controlling her behavior. It also controls income. Right now, you all have pictures of yourself as to how you see yourself in this world, how much money you think you should be making. And if it's a sales group, I'll say, all of you in this room already know how much you're going to make this year. Now, I don't know what it is, but in the back of your mind, there's a number that you're shooting for. And let's say it's $100,000. And here's how that picture affects you. Let's say in the first 6 months of this year, you fire out of the gate, you have a tremendous first half, and you make $70,000 in commissions. You're already 3/4 of the way to your goal. What do you do for the next 6 months? Golf, coast, goof around. What do you end up with at the end of that year? $100,000, because that's what you're focused on. Let's say the reverse is true. You have a terrible first quarter. You come out at the end of the first half or the end of the first quarter, you've only made, you know, 15, 20,000 in commission. What does that same person do in the second half of the year? Now they're out there working 18-hour days, getting, you know, constructively aggressive in the close, doing all kinds of things. What do they end up with at the end of the year? The same $100,000. That's an example of how that picture in the back of your mind is influencing your behavior. Now, if you read James's book that I gave you, you'll see that he talks but not like that. I took James's idea about you're carrying a picture inside your head, you know, kind of vernacularized it and put it to where a lot of people can understand it, so I don't talk to them in psychobabble. But we're in front of a group of psychologists. You know, I absolutely would be using, you know, correct terminologies. Does that answer your question? But that would be an example of how I would use an example or a situation that I found in Jane's book or any other book that I would ask myself, how would that apply to what I deal with in my presentations, and try to vernacularize it, try to make it so that anybody can understand it. Any other questions before we move forward? Because you have a question, Vivian? Go ahead.
No, I think your analogy was powerful to me in the sense of visualization, because I do it all the time. In business, for 20 years I owned a restaurant, for example. And in order to maintain the longevity of the restaurant with the pros and cons and the stimulation of the economy and stuff, I always had to picture what I needed to do. Everything I do, I always have to see how it's going to impact in 10, 15, 20 years. I always see the future, never the now. I see the now is where I am, but that picture is what I do. I sit there and I see myself, and I visualize, like, people out my door, and I visualize, you know, me just being so busy, and then like within like a half hour, an hour, all of a sudden I have people down my door, and you know, the business is going, but it's the vibe.
Exactly.
You know, it's a visual sense, and it's a making it happen. Like I have to go on the computer and then go ahead and stimulate my vision by putting it on the internet that I have this special. So I have to throw it out there, and so that's what I took from this house.
And your example, and the example I was talking about, and countless other examples, are all ways in which you can take something that most people think of as a sideshow, hypnosis, dancing with broomsticks, quacking like ducks, and use as a metaphor that actually this can be a serious business tool. That if you can change that little picture in your mind to see yourself as a six-figure producer as opposed to a $50,000 a year producer, you can actually go out there and start generating six figures. That this can actually be something helpful to you. And there are countless metaphors. Hopefully there'll be a number of them on the DVDs I sent you. If not, look for YouTube. If you want more, you know, I'll send you more. It was always giving just everyday examples as to how you're hypnotizing yourself, you're visualizing, these little pictures that float around inside your head are really affecting your performance on a daily basis in your personal life as well as in your professional life, and you don't even realize it. And that's why I'm showing you this hypnosis demonstration. That's why hypnosis is something that you might want to pay attention to, even though you may have previously thought of it as certainly not a tool for business, something more along the entertainment line. So that's how I believe you can use metaphor to reinforce your basic corporate message and put that value in that we had been talking about yesterday. Okay, let's move forward today.